Hello, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mr. 411, and I have with me tonight the calculator. Calculator, how's it going?
It's going great on my end. How are you doing, Mr. 411?
Man, it's awesome, man. I'm glad I was able to reach you. You are a man of many places, and I'm glad I was able to get the production team to set you up in a nice location and get you online, because this is our Crossing the Line edition.
Yes, sir. My favorite edition.
Exactly.
This is where you can make some money.
That's right. Because, as we always know, if you want to make a friendly wager or two, we have the 411 for you. So, tonight, we're going to cover 4 premium matchups that the calculator has decided will give you that opportunity to win those friendly wagers. We're going to start off with the Buffalo Bulls. They're playing the Bowling Green Falcons this weekend, and the Bulls are 6-10 all time in the Mid-American Conference openers, but they've won 5 of their last 8. They've won 7 of their last 8 games at their home stadium as well. Now, Bowling Green, they've won the last 4 meetings against the Bulls. So I ask you, calculator, why this game?
Well, in looking at this game, the Bulls are actually getting 9 points as a home dog, right? And remember that football power index I referenced last week worked good for us. Well, I looked at it again this week, and that's why this particular game jumped out at me. If you look at the ESPN Football Power Index, this actually has Bowling Green as roughly a field goal favorite against the Buffalo Bulls. Well, Bowling Green is more commonly known this year for its big win versus Maryland and opening week game against Tennessee, where they played them pretty tough. But the Buffalo defense has been sneaky good this year. They actually rank higher in defensive efficiency than Wisconsin, Notre Dame, and Miami. The two teams played a back-and-forth 1-point game last year at Bowling Green. The Bulls have their entire quarterback, running back, wide receiver group back from last year and should be able to, again, match the Falcons point for point, because while Bowling Green is 7th in football offensive efficiency, it is 114th in defensive efficiency. In other words, they can score a lot, but they can't stop anybody. And if you're going to go in, and so I'd like to go with the home team, and I'm getting 9 points. And not only that, I think they'll get the straight-up win. I actually have Buffalo winning the game 41-38. So I would take the Buffalo Bulls, the 9 points, and feel pretty good about it.
Wow. So not only are they going to get 9 points, according to Vegas, you have Buffalo winning the game.
I actually have Buffalo winning the game outright. I think their defense is going to hold up enough to keep them in the game. I don't see Bowling Green being able to slow Buffalo down when they have the ball, and I think it's going to be one of those games that whoever has the ball last will win, and I actually think Buffalo will have the last ball, or will have the ball last, because their defense will give them that when they need it, and then kick a field goal at the end of the game and win 41-38. But even if they don't win, even if Bowling Green cuts out to a big lead, Buffalo's always going to be in the game because of the Bowling Green defense not being able to stop people on a regular basis. So even if they come out to a big lead, I think Buffalo's always going to be able to, at least, in my opinion, get close enough to keep within that 9-point spread. Okay.
And, by the way, this is Buffalo's homecoming game.
Absolutely. They're confident.
Yeah. So if they schedule Bowling Green as their homecoming game, that has to speak volumes. So take the Buffalo Bulls. Now, let's move not too far away from where this game is being played, but from where Buffalo's playing their home game. So let's move down to the land of the Hoosiers, okay? Indiana Hoosiers, they're hosting not just anybody this weekend. They're hosting the #1 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. This game is Saturday at 3:30 p.m. in Bloomington, Indiana. This game is aired on ABC or ESPN2, depending on what part of the region you're in. Mike Patrick is going to do the play-by-play. So this game has to have some meaning, and maybe Mike Patrick is there because the calculator selected this game as one of his sports lines. So, calculator, why Ohio State at Indiana?
Well, the reason I picked this out is Ohio State, a lot of people are making about Ohio State's non-conference schedule, okay? All these MAC teams they're playing, all right? I think Ohio State has been sleepwalking, so to speak, through these games. Well, now they're about to open up into a conference game against a team that hadn't lost yet this year. Granted, they've beaten some pretty bad teams. But I think this is the time that Ohio State is going to say, okay, it's for real. Remember, we saw what happened when they got up for the game against Virginia Tech. They looked unstoppable. Well, then they say, okay, they're playing all these MAC teams. What did they really have to prove? They knew they could pretty much make all these mistakes, still recover, and still win the game. Well, I think they'll be up for this game, Mr. 411. So any thoughts that the Indiana Hoosiers think they're going to get an outright upset, get it out of your head. Indiana, get this, is 1-55 all time against top 5 opponents, with the past 7 losses coming by an average of 33 points. And all of those were at least beaten by 21 points. This will be a great chance for Ohio State to get right on offense, as the Hoosiers are 110th in the FBS in defensive efficiency. And that number includes games against an FCS offense, Florida International, which was 94th in offensive efficiency, and Wake Forest, which is 106th in offensive efficiency. Despite being 4-0, Indiana is 56 of 65 Power 5 teams in FBI. I'd be surprised if this is even close, given Ohio State hasn't clicked since week 1. And this is about as close as a wake-up game against another team that they'll have until November 21. I have Ohio State absolutely destroying the Indiana Hoosiers at their home. I have Ohio State winning 48-17. I actually have it 48-10 near the end of the game, and then they play some pre-event, and then Indiana does like a little late touchdown to kind of be one of those things where they don't want the score to be as bad as the game really looked, if you know what I mean. So yeah, right. I think Ohio State actually destroyed. I think they'll be winning by 21 at halftime, to tell you the truth. There really is no, it's a mismatch in every facet of the game. So yeah, Ohio State destroys Indiana this week. Because in my opinion, if it wasn't for Ohio State looking so bad, they're at least a 30-point favorite against this Hoosier team. This is not a very good Hoosier team. I don't care what their record says. So yeah, Ohio State wins comfortably this weekend. Lay the 21 points.
My
and,
goodness.
And then get ready for the Georgia game.
I tell you. Now look, so fans, don't be fooled by 4-0 versus 4-0.
No.
Don't be fooled by Ohio State tuning up the first 4 weeks of the season. According to the calculator, the Buckeyes are ready to unleash on the Hoosiers. They're probably going to slam dunk on the Hoosiers. They're going to throw the alley-oop on the Hoosiers. They're going to run it up on the Hoosiers. So
yes, sir.
Don't be afraid of those 21 points. Take Ohio State and take that money.
Absolutely.
So, now, here's in my opinion, this is the most intriguing one that you selected, in my opinion. You have Ole Miss. They're the third-ranked team in the country. They're going to the Swamp, which I feel like it's a trap game, but they're going to the Swamp to play the Florida Gators, who just had a miraculous victory over Tennessee. And it looks like they have something on the defensive side of the ball. This game is going to be it's coming on TV, ESPN, nationally televised game, 7 p.m. Calculator. Will Ole Miss cover?
Oh man, I love this game. Looking at such a small spread, but yet there being such a glaring discrepancy in this matchup. And I'll tell you why. Florida is ranked mainly because of Tennessee's mismanagement of the final 10 minutes last week. This game could feature one of the biggest unit mismatches of the week. The Ole Miss defensive line versus the Florida offensive line. In a game in which both defenses are above average, I trust the Ole Miss offense much more. Despite playing New Mexico State, which was 127th in defensive efficiency, East Carolina 106th in defensive efficiency, Kentucky 83rd in defensive efficiency, and Tennessee 44th in defensive efficiency, the Gators are just 51st in offensive efficiency. In other words, they played a lot of stinking defenses, and they still haven't been able to put up points.
Wow.
Rebels got their wake-up call last week in an obvious letdown situation, and with two non-conference games the next 2 weeks, they will be fully focused on Florida. So that's why it's not a trap game, Mr. 411. They got two non-conference opponents coming up, so they don't have anybody to really look forward to. So they're coming off. Yeah, so they're coming off their mental letdown against Vanderbilt, and then they got these two non-conference schedules that they're not even going to need to worry about until they get there. So they're able to put all their focus on this game, and that's why I think it really. I don't think it'll be close. Their defense is going. Those land sharks are going to be circling the waters when that quarterback tries to find somebody open on fourth down, and it's not going to happen against the land shark defense. It could happen against Tennessee. Tennessee's known to blow, some big leads. Ole Miss is not. Ole Miss 30, Florida 14. Give the 7.5, 2 touchdowns, easy.
Wow, 30-14.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Ole Miss. Yeah, Mississippi. Ole Miss is going to go in there and just chomp the Gators. Now,
yes, sir.
Wow. Well, okay. So the lesson learned in this is then we shouldn't get too caught up in what happens in the previous week or the previous memory that we have, because all I see is like Florida, celebrating, beating Tennessee, their rival, and it's like, wow, the Gators, and they're 25th in the country. I can get 7.5 points, and Ole Miss, yes, they beat Alabama. We're not going to gloss over that. However, the first couple of matchups that Ole Miss had, they was playing teams that were just coming in for a payday. But you say stick with Ole Miss, so I'm going to listen to you, and I have down your 30-14 prediction. Take the 7.5, and take it.
Absolutely.
Go with Ole Miss. Listen to the calculator. Now, and another SEC tilt. This is the main event for the weekend. Number 13, Alabama Crimson Tide. They're going to come rolling into Athens to battle the Georgia Bulldogs. The last time that Alabama faced Georgia, Aaron Murray had a chance to lead the Bulldogs to an SEC championship game. They fell just a tad short in the end zone. So I'm sure the Bulldog Nation is ready to take a bite out of the Tide, and they're going to be rocking and rolling in Athens. So it looks like Alabama, for once, is not the favorite. So what direction are you going to go with this calculator?
Well, I've actually, mentioned it on the college podcast. Before a lot of the research and the numbers came out, just when I looked at my gut feeling, I was like, I just like Alabama better. A lot of history, backing up that decision. Sure, Alabama would love to be undefeated right now, but what a great spot for the Crimson Tide. An underdog for the first time since 2009. The dynasty has been deemed over. Are you kidding me? The Crimson Tide lost a home game to a team that beat them last year, committed 5 turnovers in the process, and that's it. Run over? As my friend Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friend. Yes, Alabama has a minus 13 turnover margin in its past 6 losses, so it must hang on to the ball. But I'd be hesitant on anointing Grayson Lambert in Georgia just because they ripped apart an awful South Carolina defense. It should be a much more straightforward matchup for the Alabama defense. This feels to me like one of those been there, done that type games. Now get this. The past 7 times, Georgia has taken on a top 15 Power 5 BCS automatic qualifier opponent as the higher-ranked team. It has lost 6 of them. The past 9 times Alabama has entered the game as the lower-ranked team, it has won 7 of them. So as the saying goes, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Bama wins it 24, Georgia 20, and call it the day.
Wow. You have Alabama winning the game and getting
Straight up, my friend.
Wow.
History's on their side. Everybody. I mean, we had Zach on the podcast. You know, what do you call it, like a 3-point win for Georgia or something? Like,
correct.
He's lost his mind. Yeah, I get. You know, I love that, but we got a short memory going right there. Alabama does not lose when everybody's counting them out. So.
And also,
never go against Nick Saban.
Right. And again,
remember that time they got beat by Texas A&M? You know what happened?
Yeah.
They came back and won the national championship.
They came roaring back. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And also, you know, the last time Alabama was started off 0-2 in the SEC conference play was 1990.
Yeah.
So that's
and calculator. I was in high school. That's a long time ago. I'm an old man now, you know?
You know what? So, I mean, way back in the ancient history, man. So, yeah, okay. So that's the direction we're going with that. So Crimson Tide will go into UGA. They will win straight up and make things a lot more interesting in the SEC West division race.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, you selected another game that's going to be played in the southern part of the country. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets are hosting the North Carolina Tar Heels. Georgia Tech, you know, they just came off of a couple of losses here at Notre Dame, at Duke. So the Jackets are reeling here. I wonder if they can get that sting back. They're favored by 7.5 over Carolina. So tell me, calculator, and tell the listeners who you're taking, why, and why did you select this matchup?
Okay. Well, first I'm going to go with why I selected it. Again, I run into Professor Sachs in a non-conspicuous location this past week. Okay,
Exactly.
And of course, Professor Sachs, he loves the common folk. Okay, and he wants to give common folks, some money. So he says, hey, and he did it. He did it last week. He showed us last week. He picked out that East Carolina game and made folks some money, and and he wants to do it again. He wants to give to the people. So he says, but before I took this information, I always ask Professor Sachs, you got to back it up with some numbers, because I'm a numbers guy, and of course he is too. All right. So the Yellow Jackets, at the beginning of this year, they had high hopes entering the 2015 season, and their preseason ranking of number 16, and that made them the favorite to win the ACC Coastal. 1 month into the season, the times they are changing. It appears to be that Tech finds itself reeling from 2 losses. So what is that going to do? Actually, Vegas is going to, give you a little value right there, because people are still feeling that in the back of their heads. So they're hosting a North Carolina team that arrives off of a win and finished the 2014 season with a 6-7 record. In fact, the Tar Heels flourished in this exact role 2 weeks earlier when they routed the Illini. Better yet, the Stingers D have held 2 of 3 FBS foes to season-low yardage, while the Heels' soft rush defense, which is number 114, allowing 229 rushes yards per game.
Mm-hmm.
They yielded 279 yards on the ground to Delaware.
To who?
Delaware. One of the lower FCS opponents, okay? And how they must deal with the Jackets' ground and pound attack. And not only does series history favor the Texters, they're 5-1 against the spread last 6, including 3-0 against the spread at home. Trends and angles add additional support as the Jackets are 4-0 against the spread, with previous season conference revenge, and 6-0-1 against the spread as conference home chalk off a straight-up loss.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the Heels are 1-9 against the spread as dogs of more than 6 points after scoring 35 or more, and 1-8 against the spread in conference openers. So with all that being said, look for the Bees to not only move, but pollinate a plant today in Atlanta as the final words come courtesy, and this is coming from Professor Sachs himself, the Tar Heels find themselves in a precarious 1-10 against the spread situation. So what's that 1-10 record he's talking about? The damaging side effects of a 6-7 season linger on the following year. After coming oh so close to a winning campaign, these teams tend to lose their way when playing away from home, especially when taking to the highway off a win. Dress them up as a dog of more than 6 points in a conference game, and they slip to 10-23 against the spread in the road-weary bowl. Worse, pair them up against a foe with a decent defense, which Tech does, allowing less than 27 points per game, and they dip to 3-28 straight up, 6-25 against the spread. Those numbers don't lie, Mr. 411. That's why we love Professor Sachs, because he don't just throw stuff out there. He backs it up with historical facts. He backs it up with statistics, current statistics that are now going on, and put them all together. I actually have the score of Georgia Tech 38, UNC 28, using all these numbers that Professor Sachs gave me. Thank you, Professor Sachs. We'll be taking the Yellow Jackets, and we'll be thanking you on the air next week, like we did this week for East Carolina.
Absolutely. Here it is, Professor Sachs. And I did spot him in a location that I just cannot disclose to anyone.
That's right.
But, Professor did say that he did see you, and he had some knowledge to drop and pass it on to our listeners, because, as I always tell people, there's 3 things that I believe in. I believe in the man upstairs, I believe in Santa Claus, and I believe in Professor Sachs.
Yes, sir. I love it.
So everyone, take Georgia Tech. Take Georgia Tech and make some money this weekend. So this has been a great episode tonight. I'm so glad that the calculator, you were able to give us your time, because Sportsline is where it's at.
Yes, sir.
That's what makes the game within the game exciting. And
exactly.
I notice here that there's some things that you have to, the listeners can learn. I've even took some notes down myself, not to get too excited about things that happened the previous week. Pay attention to trends and numbers.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, so we're learning here, calculator. We're learning from you.
Right.
We appreciate you. And we're going to revisit this on next week.
That's right.
We give everyone more of crossing the line. So for the calculator, for Mr. 411, we thank you all for listening to our show, and we will see you soon.
All right. Good night, everybody.